Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we have Travis Chance and Nick Little with us today to talk about an upcoming expansion or the second phase of Aeon's End called War Eternal. It is coming to Kickstarter very soon. And this is a good game. We've played this game before. We actually reviewed it. It is a cooperative game in which players are in kind of like a post-apocalyptic fantasy world, right?
Yeah, and it's even better now. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing with War Eternal.
Yeah.
So the idea is, yes, that it's sort of a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting. The survivors of this sort of interdimensional purge of these weird monsters from, bazillion generations ago. They're living in a cave, and this is sort of the last throng of humanity, if you will. There's like no dragons, no goblins, none of the normal, typical fare of fantasy.
Trope,
it's mages versus these almost kind of Cthulhu-esque monsters.
Sure. So walk us through, for those people that haven't played Aeon's End at all, what the game is about. Why it's so different than other co-op games.
Okay, so it's a co-op deck builder, so that kind of, if you know what deck building is and you understand cooperative games, you have an idea of what's going on in it. But the thing that really makes it stand out from a deck builder is twofold. One, you never shuffle your deck. So it allows you, when you would shuffle your deck and you would to draw a card, you instead just flip your deck over. So your cards keep the order that they were in your discard pile when they become your deck. So that allows you to plan out certain combos. You never have those issues where you have in other deck builders where you didn't draw enough currency to buy what you need to buy.
Right.
If you did, it's your own fault because you didn't plan your deck right. So you can put yourself into having these big currency hands, and then the next one's like a big damage hand or something like that. So you can kind of balance how you want your cards to be drawn based on how you buy your cards and arrange your cards as you should put them in your discard pile.
Yeah, that's one of the things about this game that I think is great, and in fact it has two benefits. Like you said, you can be far more strategic with it, but also, quite frankly, you don't have to shuffle over and over and over, which is a nice thing in a deck builder.
Yeah, exactly. It takes some of the downtime while you're playing. The other big difference you'll find between this and sort of other deck builders where you deal damage is in those games typically you just play out all your damage sources and you're like, oh, I have 10 damage, I'm just going to deal 5 here and 5 there. In this game's your spells are your damage sources, and your spells they take time in order to cast. So you have to prepare them or prep them into these breaches that you have in front of you, and then on your next turn you can cast them. So there's a bit of delay and a wait for you to be able to get the benefits of those things. And because of that changes where they fall in your deck cycle, because they're not always going to be in the same place, because they're going to have to wait for a turn to come back in. And it adds to the suspense.
Yeah, there's a lot of synergy, too, in the way that you prepare those breaches, because some of the cards will interact with other players' breaches and other players' cards, so they will combo off of each other when certain spells are in certain breaches and what cards you have in your hand to be able to use at that time.
The cool thing about that, and just the co-op concept in general as it applies to a deck builder, is in a lot of deck builders I notice people tune out during everyone's turn when you're playing. Like you said, everyone's just dumping their hand at once and doing everything. In this one, you're of course paying attention because you're all trying to plan it out, but there's a lot more of that in this game. It keeps everyone engaged.
You said two things, but there is really a third thing here too, and that's the nemesis. This game really kind of models itself after the video game formula. We think so, yeah, of course, where you are fighting a giant boss, and that boss has, depending on the nemesis, has a throng of different abilities that make it wholly unique upon the next nemesis that you play against.
It feels like a completely different flavor. It's one of the things that Jeremy and I like most about this is every boss seems like a puzzle in and of itself. You're like, how do we have to tackle this guy? Because last game we did this, but it seems like this game we're not going to be able to do that at all.
Yeah, the big part I was saying that there's two issues with the deck building. The two, not issues, but benefits that's different from other deck builders. When the co-op element comes in, it's just like that. The Nemesis has a completely different strategy, a way it's attacking you, and the way you have to play around it. But then the other big thing that this changes from most other co-op games is the turn order is randomized.
I love that too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just like, okay, the bad guy goes, we all go. The bad guy goes, we all go. So that really adds to the suspense because there's a turn order deck, and you draw and you take your turn when your card comes up.
Yep.
You'll always get a turn through the cycle of the deck, but you don't know when it's going to happen. And because you're waiting for your spell to cast, that when you come up could be really important because the longer the minions stay out, the more powerful they are.
And this reinforces the cooperative element of the game, too. It helps to combat that sort of quarterbacking issue that a lot of these games have.
Bouncing around. We played 3-player, the three of us, just the other day, too. I like how that helps the scalability of the game, too, that wild.
Right.
It's really fun when some player gets 2 turns in a row because it's the best thing to do for the team.
Yeah.
And then And I think in one case, Jeremy went twice in a row, and then the new round started, and
deck
he was
shuffled.
the first. So he had 3 turns in a row, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
He was really able to catch us up. Because I think at the beginning of the round, I think the Nemesis took like 2 turns in a row, so it looked like we were really behind, but we still had 4 player turns to go, and we were able to kind of counteract what he had done.
So let's talk about actually War Eternal itself. Sure. What is this doing new or different than the original Aeon's End?
Well, for the people that are fans of Aeon's End, I will say that the game, it doesn't change the game on any sort of fundamental level. You're still playing Aeon's End. You're just getting more of it, and you're getting it from a different angle. So the Nemesis, there were spots in the game where we were like, well, have we really tried to approach this element of the game at all with the Nemesis? And we hadn't, when it comes to like dealing damage to the Nemesis, basically. So typically in a normal game of Aeon's End, you try to handle the minions as they come out and then deal damage to the Nemesis when you can, or when you have to, basically, because you need more space for your spells.
Right.
And War Eternal, we have 3 or 4 different Nemesis where it's important to hit them at certain stages early in the game, because their abilities will get stronger if you don't kind of wear down their defenses, or you don't kind of keep their life at a lower element.
I do think that we explored, if you look at the mages from the Wave 1 stuff, they're very straightforward. You know, like Brahma lets you gain life.
And their cards don't necessarily, their unique cards don't necessarily work with their ability. They're like a good unique card and a good ability, but it's not the same.
There was more just like a utility. The characters in the mages in War Eternal certainly have more, I think, further explore the design space, and it also they have like some interesting interplay between their abilities. There's one that has 2 starting cards. There's
there are 2 actually.
Yeah.
When we played it, you could pretty quickly see that they feel like they have a lot more variable powers right from the beginning, based on their ability and the cards that they come with, or maybe more than one, like you said.
Right.
Let's talk about the actual cards themselves. Let's first look at the playing cards that you're going to be playing with. They look different.
Right.
Yeah.
So walk us through what happened here.
So we updated the graphics on this. We found that when Aeon's End came out, that nearly everybody that played it loved the game, and really the complaint was mostly the look of the cards. And then a little bit of the component quality. There were some things that should have been thicker or just a different quality, etc. So we've addressed those in the Kickstarter campaign. There's some things that are starting upgraded, and there's some things that we have pretty achievable stretch goals to get us to those upgraded components for the expansion and then for the Aeon's End reprint. But graphically, we went and changed pretty much how the card looks entirely.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the layout of the information is still in the same place. The cost is up here, the name is here, and the ability is here. But you can see we went for full art. There's no border on the card.
Yeah, it really showcases the art a lot better. And it's just so much cleaner, which we appreciate. I mean, when you're playing a game like this, there's a fair amount of text on some of these cards.
Right.
So it's nice and clean and organized now. I'd say Jeremy and I were both in that same camp. We loved the game. I think our only con would have been, like you said,
we were trying to kind of capture the post-apocalyptic sort of the direness of the world, and unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily translate in a way that makes the game as attractive. And let's be honest here, we're living in a day and age where games look awesome.
Yeah.
So in order to give Aeon's End the best chance it has, this is a change that we not only needed to make but wanted to make.
So how are you going to approach this for the backers? Like people that originally have Aeon's End, the base game, how are you allowing them to kind of cross over into this, since the front of the cards will look completely different from one another?
Yeah, so you touched on it a little bit there. Only the fronts of the cards are changing. So the backs of the cards are the same. So if for some reason you have your heart set on the old frame and you want to keep as much of your game into that old frame, you certainly can. If you want to mix it with the new stuff or play the new stuff separately with the different
totally
frames,
possible.
You can do that.
Yeah.
Yes. But, yeah, your next concern is, I'm sure people are out there going, well, I have all this old stuff. Is it worthless now? How much more do I have to pay for the new stuff? Right. So if you backed Aeon's End and you back War Eternal, we will check that you backed Aeon's End, and then we will send you an update pack for free. And the update pack is all of the new cards and then all of the new player mats. And we'll show the player mats in a second.
Well, all of the old
all
of the old content.
Yes, all the old content, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of the Aeon's End content, new cards, and player mats.
That's huge.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like you guys, I mean, it's always great to see a company listen to everybody and then respond well. And you guys are nailing it, I think, on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies would have just stayed the course and at the detriment of the product. I mean, what we've seen with Aeon's End is, it's currently out of stock.
Yeah, you guys had a lot of success with it.
Absurdly good reviews, and really the visuals was the thing that was kind of missing there.
So what about those people that bought it for retail?
The people that bought it in retail, if they back the campaign, all they have to do is add $10 onto their pledge, and we will send them the update pack.
Cool.
You'll need to. We'll likely ask you for a picture of your name on a sticky note on your copy of the game.
Sure, some sort of proof.
That you bought it and you're not just trying to get all this content for $10, basically.
So the cards look great, but you also redid the player mats as well.
Right.
So talk to us not about the graphic design here, but about how you were talking about the synergy now between the players and the cards that they use and how they're different from the original Aeon's Endgame.
Okay, so let's pop down. Go to the next slide. Yeah, Jan Magda here. Okay, so you can't see her starting card, but we'll look at her board here, and I'll tell you what her starting card does. Her starting card is Illuminate, which is probably behind David here, but it's a spell that says, while this is prepped, whenever you focus one of your breaches during your turn, you may deal a damage, or you deal a damage. So what you'll do with that, and you start with it in your opening hand, and what you'll do is you'll prep it in your first breach here, and you'll probably leave it there for a long time. And you rarely cast this card because it's really doing a lot of work sitting there, because what you'll do is you'll pay and you'll start focusing your breaches to deal immediate damage to things. And early in the game in Tier 1, the minions only have like 5 or 6 life. So if on your next turn when you have 4 crystals and a spark, you go, I'm going to focus my 2 breach twice and prep my spark there. So you'll deal 2 damage to those guys that have 4 or 5 or 6 hit points, so they're like almost halfway dead already.
What I like what you've done there is, like, the breaches in the first game was very cool. Like you said, it's kind of this delayed aspect that you don't find in a lot of games. But you're getting as much mileage as you can as game designers and developers out of this breach mechanic by doing something like you just explained with her. That is really cool, where you're prepping a spell, whereas in the first game, oftentimes, a lot of people are just, you're get in the habit of just prepping spells, casting spells, prepping spells.
Right.
And you're really mixing it up, so, you might leave that spell prepped quite a while.
Right.
Yeah, that's very cool.
It's one that you definitely want to leave out for a while. Desmodi is another one who kind of touches on the different breach aspect of the things that we can do with the breaches. So her ability costs 6 to activate, and it says any player destroys an opened 1 or 2 breach. So it starts out with what looks like a negative. You're going to have to take one of your breaches and destroy it. But then you gain a sigil breach and place it where that breach used to be. So these sigil breaches are special breach tokens that'll be in the box that says while open, or whenever you cast a spell from one of these breaches, it deals 2 additional damage.
Nice.
So typically your 3 and 4 breaches deal 1 additional damage, but she's upgrading your 1 and 2 so that they deal 2 additional damage.
Yeah, that's cool too. When you first told us about this whole concept of kind of like upgrading and playing with the breaches,
right?
That, I can imagine, has opened up even more ideas for you down the road.
Yeah, we started out kind of pie in the sky, shooting for the moon on that, and we realized that making too many changes in that direction was going to overcomplicate the game right off the bat. But assuming that these abilities are as popular as we think and the game continues to be successful, that is definitely something down the road where we'll explore it more.
So we also see a graphic change to the Nemesis, but also you mess with these even to change the design space with them. Talk about the Mages of Cloaks, because that guy's really cool, and he requires what you're now using as Nemesis tokens, right?
Nemesis tokens, yeah, exactly. In the first game, but we really only had 2 Nemesis that had tokens to them. And one of them just gained a Fury token, and as he built up more Fury, he would eventually lash out at you and draw a card from his strike deck. The other one was gaining Husk tokens, so she was like making little babies every time.
Yeah, we remember her.
Yeah.
Right. Not so fondly. So in those, it was important that we called them Husk tokens, and they had the pictures of the Husk. So in this one, we do have several Nemesis that have Nemesis tokens on them. So what we didn't want to get into was making a bunch of different tokens that you had to have a pain in the butt of organizing and digging out. And also, they're not as... Like, the Husks kind of have character to them, they have an image and stuff. These are just, like, the Nemesis tokens for the Mages of Cloaks are his cloaks. It's like the armor that he's building up. And as you hit him, it kind of wears away. So it doesn't really have a particular sort of piece of art that would go with. You could call them armor tokens, but, like, they're not going to look significantly different from sort of Nemesis tokens. So the way the Mages of Cloaks works is, at setup, he's going to gain 4 cloak tokens, or 4 Nemesis tokens. Whenever you deal him damage, that damage is reduced by the amount of tokens he has, and then he loses a token. So basically, you're wearing away at his shield as you hit him. So if you hit him for only 1 and he has 4, he just loses a shield. But if you hit him for 5, he only takes 1 and then he loses a shield when he has 4. His Unleash is he either gains 2 Nemesis tokens or Gravehold suffers 2 damage.
So you're picking one of the worst options.
You're
one
picking
of the 2 bad options.
Right, exactly.
The
You're
lesser
like,
of 2 evils.
Yeah, you're like, either he gets more defense or we take 2 damage.
Yeah.
Right, so...
How big is this expansion in comparison to the original Aeons?
It's slightly bigger.
Okay. Bigger than the first game.
The Aeons and War Eternal is the same size. It has more tokens because we went in a little different direction with the mages, because the mages in the first game don't have any specific tokens to them. We're also releasing the Void at the same time. The Void, I think, has a couple of more cards than the Depths did, which was kind of its counterpart. And then all the stretch goals we have planned, we actually have more stretch goals planned than we did originally.
So and again, this is a standalone expansion. Right. So would you describe this as a great entry point for people who haven't even gotten into Aeon's End yet?
Yeah, I would say that this is a tad harder than Aeon's End. So, because we assume that most people have played Aeon's End, so they come in with some understanding how the game works. So,
the general complexity is higher. The mages are a little more interesting and dynamic. The cards are a little more interesting and dynamic. We introduce a new keyword, or the first keyword rather, in the game.
But the base gameplay though is essentially the same. So it's not more complicated in that sense.
No,
it's more complicated if you want to be really good and work up some really good
There's
strategies.
a higher skill ceiling. We'll put it that way. The cards are all just as simple as they were, just as easy to understand. The rule set is literally exactly the same. Like, I'm proving the rule book now, and all I'm changing is examples. The core of it is identical.
I can't tell you how many games that Dave and I play over a month. I mean, it's dozens and dozens of new games, and we haven't touched this game since we originally
No, we haven't.
And I gotta say, this is one of the best designed co-op games that I've played. It really requires people to talk at the table, which you don't see. I mean, co-op games are typically alpha-led. I mean, you have one player directing all the communication in the game. When we played it the other day, we were reminded how good this game is, how smartly designed it is, and how fun it is to open these breaches and plan your deck. Because most, like you said, most of the deck builders, you're just drawing and doing whatever is available to you at that time.
Well, and the concept of getting rid of that alpha gamer, I mean, you've played this hundreds of times. We've played it the one time with you the other day.
Maybe a half dozen.
You weren't just telling us, okay, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do.
And Nick's a strong personality.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, there was some of that going on, but obviously you developed the game, you played it a million times. So it was really interesting. I think for people who've not played the game or played it equally, there's no way there's going to be an alpha gamer situation. I don't think.
Yeah, the fact that you don't shuffle your deck means that you can have a very planned out long-term strategy in the game, which you can't really in games like Dominion or Ascension. You can like buy the best card and get an overall plan, but there's no guarantee you're going to draw your 3-card
which is a bit deterministic. I mean, there's a lot of zigs and zags in the game where the game state will change, and that's kind of I think the interesting interplay between the strategic element of building your deck and then the tactical element of dealing with the turn order deck. Holy crap, the Nemesis just took 4 turns in a row. We were doing really good, and now everyone's face is on fire. So,
No, it was really good. We really enjoyed it. You know, like Jeremy said, playing it again after having been away from it for a while reminded us of like, wow, this really is a good game.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that the the new content with the new look is going to help to really pique some interest in some of the people that may have been on the fence before.
Yeah, so. It's definitely a much better looking product in my opinion. The box even too is very colorful and really eye catching. So yeah.
Well, best of luck, guys.
Thank you.
On War Eternal. Make sure you guys check it out. Do you guys have a price point yet for entry fee?
It's going to be $65, and that will get you the War Eternal and the Void.
Okay.
And then all the stretch goals and everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us here. Catch us next time. Make sure you guys subscribe to us, follow us on YouTube and Facebook and everything else that we do here at Man vs. Meeple, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.